That way I'll know where that bag is when I have to come back later this afternoon.
Somebody will find it for you. All right, Ms. McGee, when you're ready.
How are you?
Thank you. Now we're going to review the fiscal year 26 budget for the Department of Children and Family Services as it's in House Bill 1. The department is made up of one agency and three divisions. Management and Finance provides administrative function for the department, which such as accounting, budget, human resources, systems, research, and analysis. The Department of Management and Finance also is responsible for emergency preparedness, which provides mass care during disasters. Division of Child Welfare contains intake and child protective services, family services, foster care, adoption, extended foster care, and juvenile trafficking. And then the Division of Family Support is responsible for the SNAP and TANF programs, administrates the child support enforcement for the state, disability determination services, and then workforce development for employee and training and FITAP, SNAP, and child support participants. The total budget recommendation for fiscal year 26 is $1 billion. You'll see the department is primarily funded with state general funds and federal funds. Collectively, they're $972 million, or 97% of the department's financing. On the right, you can see that the budget of each program within the department, management and finance is 16% of the budget, child welfare is 39% of the budget, and family support is 40% of the budget. There are 3,753 authorized positions within the department. Here we're looking at the historical spending over the last 5 years by each means of finance. The average annual spending change from fiscal year 20 to 24 is 7.5%. Here we have the different sources of funding. State General Fund is $307.1 million. And interagency transfers come from LDH for Medicaid, the Department of Education for reimbursement for child care payments, and then transfers from GOSEP are for emergency preparedness operations. Then also from the Department of Revenue for financial institution data match. The self-generated revenues are largely made up of child support enforcement services, parental contributions for children in foster care, and then the state central registry fees, then also marriage license fees and child welfare licensing fees. Statutory dedications come from the Fraud Detection Fund, and then federal funds are the largest means of financing for the various federal programs. Here we have the funding comparison comparing fiscal year 25 to 26. We can see that State General Fund is decreasing by $13 million. $26 million decrease for the Office of Management and Finance. This is primarily due to a contract at OTS that's not being renewed. $19.2 million increase in the Division of Child Welfare and a $6.8 million decrease in the Division of Family Services. The decrease in statutory dedications is due to the ending of the Continuum of Care Fund. And then federal funds are increasing by $62.2 million. $79.4 million increase is for the Division of Family Services, primarily for the Sunbox program. $25.5 million is a decrease in the Management and Finance Division. And then $8.2 million increase in child welfare. Here we can see the bulk of the expenditures at DCFS are the other charges and interagency transfers. We'll take a closer look at other charges and interagency transfers on this slide. Here we have the breakdown. Other charges and interagency transfers make up a combination of 56% of the department's budget. The majority of the other charges are the expenses to run the federal programs, such as foster care, Sunbox, TANF, adoption, and child support enforcement. The majority of the interagency transfers are to OTS for the various IT projects and the OTS-based payment. And then there's also funds transferred to Department of Education for the LA4 program. You have $9 million that goes to various state agencies for the different TANF initiatives, $8.7 million to LDH for the medical vendor payments, the Coordination of Care Network, the Nursing Family Partnership through the TANF, and OPH for vital records. And then $5.6 million is transferred to OJJ for the administration and activities in support of preventative placement services and the community supervision through TANF. Here we have the expenditure comparison. It gives us a closer look of the expenditures by category. You'll see that the areas of the largest change are the personnel services, other charges, and interagency transfers. So taking a closer look, the personnel services increased by $20.6 million. $16.7 million is for employee pay raises. There is $11.6 million in savings from vacant positions, $8.6 million in overtime for child welfare workers, and $2.9 million for child protective services. The operating services are increasing by 2.9%, primarily due to increases in rent, and is offset by savings from decreases in cellular expenses. Professional services are increasing by $2.5 million. This is for the contractor that handles the issuance of the Sunbucks. And then other charges are increasing by $77.6 million. The majority of this is to fund the benefits for the summer EBT program. Interagency transfers are decreasing by $57 million. $38.4 million is due to expiration of a contract for the integrated eligibility system. The RFP for that contract is supposed to go out next year. So in fiscal year 27, DCFS is anticipating requesting these funds, but they won't be through OTS. It would either be through an IET with LDHR as professional services. There's a $10 million decrease in the transfer for TANF initiatives and an $8.4 million decrease in transfer to TANF for the LA4 program. Acquisitions are increasing by $1.1 million, and that's to purchase 45 replacement vehicles in the Child Welfare Department. Here we have the personnel information. On December 30th, they had 295 vacant positions. On the right, you can see the historical average salary. You can see the salary for DCFS employees is historically between $5,000 to $8,000 less than the average state employee.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
The average salary is $5,000 to
apologize, Mr.
$8,000 less
Chairman.
than the average state employee. The bottom, we have the turnover history. In the top vacated positions, DCFS historically has a lower than average turnover history. And in the top 5 positions, with the largest number of separations, child welfare specialist 3 being the highest. That concludes the presentation. Judge Matlock and his team are here to answer any questions.
Judge Matlock, would you like to make a statement?
I
before we-
would, and
Okay.
I will try to be brief, whether I'm successful. Will be.
Take all the time you like.
Yes, sir. I do want to thank you, Chairman, and each member of this committee. I'm really, really grateful. This is a special committee, and y'all know that, and y'all know that we know that as well. I'm also grateful for being taken so early this morning on this. It's a big deal to our staff because, well, I'll just leave that. It's a big deal to be doing that. I want to thank your staff as well, not just Julie, but especially Julie, for working with us so hard and so well. And of course, I want to thank my staff, Undersecretary Harris, but our whole. Once you get below me, we got a really strong team, Mr. Chairman and committee. That level, Ms. Rao, Sammy Guillory, Ricky Monte, Dr. Rebecca Hook, and all the folks, Brett, of course, that you work with, our general counsel. Who am I leaving out? Melissa Horton and others. It's a really, really strong high-level leadership group and many folks down there. I want to talk a little bit about some wins. In fiscal year 2024, we added 913 new foster homes. That's 913 compared to 851 the previous year, compared to 749. So we've gone from 749 to 913. I haven't tracked. I mean, I'm mindful of the current numbers. Have a good feeling, but that's a big deal to us, having foster homes where we can place. When I came into office just a hair over a year ago, we had children living in offices, right, in hotel rooms. Y'all remember? Y'all knew it. Y'all lived it. I was out fishing. And today we have 0. And that's I get those daily, weekly reports, and that's a big deal. Now, how did that happen? I really don't know. It is an amazing staff and effort led by folks like Christy Tate, Yvonne Domingue, and all of their teams, and then our local teams working on that. But our folks didn't sign on to provide overnight care for medically fragile newborns in an office. And so the efforts of standing up foster parents, I'll get to a little more involved in that, but then and creating this sort of cultural change and this environmental change of approach, but it's really just hard work by a lot of people, both in the Iberville building and in state office buildings around this state, and couldn't be more proud of them. That 0 number is a big deal. We've got new group homes. We've added a place. Y'all need to go see it if you get a chance. It was Heritage, or is Heritage Ranch, run by a group named Timothy Hill out of upstate New York and Tennessee and Arkansas and wherever else. And it's not far from here, but it's out in the country. It's an incredible campus. So if y'all get a chance, I'll love to ride out there with you. We got this week. We put our first 2 children there, and we're really excited about that. We have other group homes coming online, or congregate care, I should say. Specialized placements for those children who, for one reason or another, shouldn't be or can't be placed in a family home, but still need loving, wholesome, good care. So bringing in those, and again, that helps with that office space, and that's frankly a lot of the work of this committee, among many other groups involved. CCAP, we're covering CCAP registration fees that haven't been covered by LDOE for our foster parents. Karen Austin with our group is working on some really great ways to work through the funding on that, but that has started. And so if I've got a foster parent out there that's having to, the DOE will pay it one time, once a year for children, but foster children move, and we need to have daycare for them. And so us being able to help do that. And so I'm proud of Karen Austin's, Leslie Calloway's team working on that. Streamlining the certification process for foster parents. We don't want to do anything unsafe, but we don't want to we want to do things that look a little more like private nonprofits than large. I love this bureaucracy, but we want to be mindful of a agile way of bringing folks online and sort of reimagining the way we train, the way we screen, the way we do that, so we can do it really quickly. You shouldn't have to say, I want to be a foster parent, and then wait 9 months before, and that was the average, if I'm correct, before the first placement would be there. And so we have streamlined that, learned from some of our partners and from some other states how to streamline that, bringing foster parents on, and we're continuing, I think, to see good outcomes from that. Cultural change. Joel Hooper and 9 incredible foster parent support and recruitment folks around the state are building that support, and again, that's being reflected in success. Margie Nielsen with Methodist Children's Home up in Monroe. Although the home is in Ruston, she has a mentor program. They've had 2 brand new ones, 26 mentors around the state. These are foster parents who are very experienced, very knowledgeable, know how to work the system, know how to, interact with us. And foster parents call them, and they've got websites and apps on their phones, and they know how to do it. And I meet with them once a month. Last night I was on the phone with them from about 5 till about 6:30, hearing individually about all the calls that foster parents have made. And these are gritty folks. I tell them, that's nice, we're doing a great job, but tell me what the problems are. And so, some of our team listen in on that occasionally, and so it really gives us a chance, and it gives voice to our foster parents. We have some adjacent stars who work, these foster parents like Ashley Carey Betts in Orleans. They're standing up twice a month, foster parent support meetings. I've been there in the last 3 months in Gretna. Local leaders are involved in that, and it's just so powerful. Others, Chesley Pickett up in Monroe, Jessica Latchney in Alexandria, but in Starfish, I know where you are. So I'm sorry, but for good reason, right? I'm sorry. I'm old. But Starfish Ministries in Ball, Louisiana, kind of near Alexandria, and again, Chesley Pickett up in Monroe, amazing. And other foster parent leaders, Claire Cox is working with, particularly in some adoption areas. We're also providing, largely due to the work of Joel and his team, phone trees for foster parents, so and others, frankly, CASAs and others, so that when somebody knows and can't get a hold of their caseworker, they know the next person. And the top name on that phone tree for that cell number is me. So every foster parent has that. Every every city police chief has my cell number. We've distributed that, which is very helpful. I'm trying to get my cell number onto the patrol desk because that's where it really happens. Where we lose traction or we can't get, it helps us identify systemic problems, solve a particular case in that instance, but also identify systemic problems working with law enforcement. And some of y'all have lived through what that looks like, and it's not good. Working with faith-based efforts statewide, Christy Goodwin with Connect One Child, Crossroads, of course, in the Orleans and other area broadly. Foster Closets, James Samaritan Family Village, Cypress Baptist up in Northwest, First Baptist Denham Springs doing TBRI training. And then this is huge, Pastor Donald Hunter and a large group of bishops and presidents and across all demographic lines of faith leaders working together to stand up within each of these churches in Louisiana. We've talked about this a long time, but now Donald Hunter and others are doing it, identifying a member or staff member of each of those faith groups that is committed to standing up and helping rally around foster parents, and in some case, our own workers in those areas. And it's a huge effort that y'all will find out more about. We're meeting in areas around the state. We've started in the Baton Rouge area. We're going to be rolling out to what I would call Florida parishes area, and then we're expanding. But we've already established the networks. I showed up in Lafayette at a foster parent support group. Forget what day, within the last few days. And a lady said, "You know Donald Hunter?" I said, "You bet I do." She said, "He said be here." And so we're establishing those networks across all lines. We're also meeting regularly with mental health. Sorry for taking so long. We've distributed more, and I need to talk about this. We distributed more than $80 million to almost 669,000 Louisiana school children's families this last summer under what I would call the hogwash abatement program led, and that would not have happened, but for this committee and your fearless leader. And fearless is not, I might even say fearful on occasion, and I'm proud of that. And, we're hill takers, Chairman. You show us what hill, and we know our lane. You tell us the hill to take, and we'll take it. Tim, Allie, others, they know how to take hills. And we got it done, and it would not have happened in that time frame. So I am proud of y'all. And you put us you put it in our budget. Tell us to do it, and if it's good for children and families, it's going to happen, or we're going to collapse trying. So we're grateful for Governor Landry's commitment to securing permanent funding in the state budget for domestic violence shelters and services. We would welcome an additional $7 million over and above the budget that you will see to be included for domestic violence shelters. We would, if the need is there, and depending on what happens with the feds, we would welcome an additional $10 million, total of 10, not 10 and above the 7, depending on what state partners do. Domestic violence matters. We talk about working with children and families in child welfare and abuse and neglect and maltreatment cases, and we talk about whether something's upstream or downstream. Everything we do is downstream of a child and family, and it's upstream of a child and family. You pull a child out of an abusive situation, terrible abuse, that feels downstream. But you're upstream of that child's children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Everything, and if you're working with a pregnant mother or a high schooler to talk about the effects of trauma on neural development, you think you're upstream, but you're downstream of some trauma too, every single time. It's a cycle, it's a big circle. And everything we do is upstream and downstream of trauma and abuse and stress and problems with neural development. And that's coming from an old man who didn't learn that until he had been a judge working in this space for 2 decades. So, but it's never too late. Maybe that's the lesson there. OTS, I want to say, we have found OTS to be really good partners, and working together with them and with our incredible, I'm not allowed to say nerds, so our incredible technological team, they are identifying some ways for online, cloud, whatever storage that we're going to realize some savings. But I have personally enjoyed, and I know our staff enjoys, our working relationship with OTS, and I'm really, really grateful to them. We are asking for some additional money over and above what y'all will see in the budget presented before you. We need, and need is inadequate of a word because it's really children need. We need to increase our child welfare frontline TOs by 125. That is a cost of $10 million state general funds, $2.4 million Fed. I'm going to give this to you, Julie, we need 125 new TOs. If you tell me we're going to give you JAs, guess what? I'm going to smile and be incredibly grateful. But we need 125. 120 of those are frontline child welfare workers. 5 of those are to help us stand up these congregate care placements that we're working on around the state. So 120 of that 125 are really just absolute frontline people, and child welfare caseworkers and their immediate supervisors, because you can't add 120 new people without having at least that lowest level of supervision. But it is very frontline, 125, and that's a cost of $10 million state general funds. I need 18 paralegals to assist our attorneys, and here's why that's important. It's a tough ask, I understand that, but it's very, very important. Right now, our frontline caseworkers are having to prepare legal documents that they didn't sign on for that. They're not paraprofessionals or professionals in the legal area, and they're having to prepare these for district attorneys, for our attorneys, because we have none or virtually none paralegal and very little administrative staff support for lawyers. Those 18 paralegals will also free up our lawyers. Our lawyers are having to prepare documents that should be prepared by a paraprofessional under their supervision. So our workers are doing work they shouldn't do, and our lawyers are doing some work they shouldn't do, and we need those 18 people right there in the middle so our workers can do what they're supposed to do. The reason I want to free up a little bit of time from our lawyers is everybody around this state tells me your workers, your frontline workers, need to be trained how to do court testimony, how to write court reports, how to do all this stuff. Well, guess who knows how to do that brilliantly? Our frontline lawyers. But they don't have the time to do the training. So that's why those paralegals are so important to me. As Julie mentioned, we have gotten, I think, 45 cars in our budget, but there's an additional 30 cars that we need. And for anyone who would like to see what that looks like, come ride with me on our office visits and see the vehicles they're riding and hear from a few of our frontline workers about having to wait for cars or use their cars in ways they should not do it. So it is also a money-saving thing. It's got an initial kind of money, but right now we're having to pay so much in maintenance. that these 70, total of 75, 45 in the proposed budget, 30 additional, will really be transformative. And then we also need an additional $744,000 of state money and $1.1 million of federal money to assist us with rate setting for these congregate placements and for our foster families. We haven't had rate setting since the 90s. And it's created real problems for us when it comes to being able to make child placements in foster homes, TFCs, and in therapeutic foster homes, and in congregate placements. So we've got to bring ourselves within the 21st century in our rate setting. And that's going to cost $744,000 of state general funds. Very, very important. And I'm grateful to our undersecretary. I welcome all questions. I'm told not to talk to y'all or bring up the subject of audits. Y'all may have read about some of our audits. I'm not supposed to talk about that. So, of course, what am I going to do, Chairman? I'm going to talk about it a little bit. We had a fuel transaction finding up in Monroe. I need to say, it took us a minute to find an undersecretary, but not a long minute, but a minute. She got here, I think, in March of last year. February of last year. By March, she said she or some of her amazing staff, but I really think her, they said there's an anomaly in a fuel charge thing we got going on up in Monroe. And so she notified our audit department. I don't know, she knows the details on this. That was in March. They were up there with cameras around gas stations, our audit folks, our internal, running this, seeing what's going on. We immediately, once we found out what was going on, we reported it to the legislative auditor or the inspector general, whoever and the DA. And boom, 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 that was done. And so I'm proud of you, Undersecretary Harris. That had been going on a while. I hadn't been here very long. She had been here no time. So, I'm proud of that. So, cost allocation on expenditure findings, and that has to do with missing some of our opportunities to maximize our federal reimbursements. And they have set up, a lot of that is big process stuff and involves changes. Our undersecretary, the Office of Management and Finance, is on top of that, and we caught a whole bunch of it last year. It's a lot of work to track the information that you have to capture in order to do those cost allocations, but it is time well spent and money well spent because you get back a lot more than you put into it, so we're devoting a lot of efforts to that. Work documentation on TANF funding. I think Sammy, I may need to, it takes me a minute to roll through each of these as I mention them because I'm not supposed to mention them and nobody prepared me really much. I mean, they did, but work documentation for TANF. Okay, that's for our folks on the front line. Sammy can address that. We have identified, we're working on that. It's a big problem. We agreed with the finding, and Sammy has some great steps, and his team has some great steps to address that. Time statement finding, I'm really bringing this, in fact, the reason I mentioned audits is because I really want to mention the name of Leslie Calloway and Kim Sashery because those two people are all over this time statement finding. They blast memos, and they're cute, and they're nice, and but at the bottom line, they say, get your time statements in, and because we're tired of this finding, and we shouldn't have to do this finding. I will tell you, our frontline workers are holding up this entire agency right now. The weight of this agency is on their shoulders, and it's not their fault. It's my fault. It's our fault for not having mobilized the support that they need. That's why I need those 125 frontline or 120 frontline workers and 5 congregate workers, so that our workers will have time to do in addition to all the other work that they do, to finish their time statements, because we're holding them feet to the fire on that, but we're holding their feet to the fire on a lot of other things, and they are literally holding this entire department up on their shoulders. And that's true in family support, and it's certainly true in child welfare. It's true in legal and in management and finance. Nothing works without management and finance, and that's true of OTS partners as well. The FFATA sub-award findings, Undersecretary Harris is going to have to address that because my mind is at the limits of its meager capabilities at this point. It'll come to me in a minute, and I will be quiet. I'll, of course, take any questions. Thank y'all, Mr. Chairman.
Are you sure?
About me being ignorant or my limited Oh, you weren't talking to me. I'm sorry, Representative.
One thing about DCFS, it's definitely going to be entertaining. Vice Chairman Hughes, to begin us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, let me congratulate you. Last week, Representative Bagley made history for the longest filibuster in appropriations. And I think you just broke that record. At this point, I think we should just pass the basket and adjourn because, But on a serious note, let me thank you, first of all, for your kindness. Last session, I talked a lot about kindness and the need for all of us to be more kind. And you and Representative Thompson certainly set the tone for how we should all be more kind in this world. So thank you for that. Thank you for your passion, and thank you for your leadership. I have a couple questions. Federal funds, I know a substantial portion of your budget is federal funding. There's a lot of uncertainty at the federal level right now with federal funds. Currently, do you see any impacts in terms of loss of funding at the federal level that would impact your budget?
I'm watching that very closely. I spent about a week up in Washington, on my dime, not y'all's, a couple of weeks ago. And I met briefly with our Speaker of the House, who I've known for decades. And I'm watching it closely. You will know when I know. I personally, and I have to be real careful here because a lot of this is not knowable. I am a voice for supporting SNAP programs. I am particularly when under good firm leadership, occasionally from in the area of Sunbucks, but food for children. I do believe in grab and go and direct feeding where we can for reasons I've elaborated before, and I'll try to avoid another filibuster. I'm not worried about our work. I would have some concerns in the Medicaid area, maybe in some other areas dealing with LDH personally, not for any super secret knowledge, just for things that I'm observing, because most evenings I'm up trying to see what's going on with DOGE and other efforts. And by the way, we're working with our own local DOGE efforts to make sure we're doing our best. Our problem with that is we've been DOGing for over a decade, and in terms of this agency. So, but to answer your question, I'm not overly concerned. I'll probably call you, honestly, Representative Hughes, because I would like to do that. You talk about kindness. You kind of set a bar last year for that, and I know that others know that as well, and I'm grateful for that. You can light up a room a little bit, and you notice the little things that people do personally, and I'm sorry for that, highlighting that because it's embarrassing to you, but it is the truth, and I'm not the only one that knows it. When I know anything, I will call you. I'll certainly call Chairman McFarland. And I don't anticipate huge problems in our area.
Okay. No,
It's a great question. Y'all get it from your constituents constantly.
Right, absolutely. And, just so much uncertainty, just keep us posted. And I realize, the federal process is fluid.
I am meeting with the ACF nominee, or visiting with him. Deputy Rao and I will be visiting with him, I think, on the 25th.
Okay.
He's the federal partner in what we do, but more and broadly, ACF. And so we'll have more information then. Sorry to interrupt you, Representative.
No, you're fine. Thank you. Let me go to slide 7. I noticed that your budget calls for a roughly $20 million increase to the Division of Child Welfare. But I'm seeing a roughly $7 million decrease in the Division of Family Services. Can you tell me a little bit about the need for that decrease on the Family Services side?
Is that family support or family services?
The family services, that's Rebecca Harris. That's related to some statewide adjustments and TANF adjustments.
Can you go a little bit more into detail when you say adjustments?
Yeah. So the statewide adjustments, we had some for attrition for vacant positions, personnel reductions. There were 5 TO that had been vacant for some period of time, and so those were reduced in the budget, and retirement rate adjustments.
Okay. Let me now go to slide 12. You have a lot of turnover in your agency, which is nothing new, because the work within your agency is tough. Tell me a little bit, but I see a substantial turnover rate north of 50%. Social service analyst 1, is that on the family support side, I'm assuming?
Social service analyst 1 positions exist in family support, and there are also some in child welfare, so it encompasses both divisions.
Okay, and then the child welfare specialist 1. I'm assuming employees do exit interviews. What is the primary reason we're seeing such substantial turnover in those 2 positions?
Can we go back to that slide? Because I need to help me with just a second. I can address, thank you, Julie. Sammy Guillory, do you know if that's picking up your folks or Dr. Hook, your folks?
The child welfare specialists, 1s and 3s would be my folks, so those would be the frontline staff.
Okay.
Would you mind just coming to the table briefly?
I do have some address, but I can address it generically because I talk to these employees and I read their separation reports. But I wanted to make sure I was talking about the right set of employees.
Okay.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, so as Secretary Matlock said, there are...
Identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Rebecca Hook. I'm the Assistant Secretary for Child Welfare.
Thank you.
And I stepped into the role in September. I have read some of the exit interviews as well when people do separate from the department. The reasons are variable. When you look at the child welfare specialist 1, so that would be a brand new employee, someone coming in, basically from another job and coming into child welfare. Sometimes it can be because of the caseload, and that is why we have requested additional positions.
What's the starting salary, not to interrupt you, for that position?
Oh, goodness. I know we had looked at that information. We had looked at that information, and we do have that available. I don't have it in front of me at this moment.
Okay.
Our undersecretary probably can pull that up.
I don't have the
Ballpark.
I'm sorry. Around 58.
Okay.
Is that right? Am I saying that right? Okay.
And that's for the child welfare specialist 1, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the social service analyst 1, what's the starting salary for that position?
These are numbers I have known and
Just
watched.
ballpark. I don't need a finite number.
How much? 40,000.
Okay.
And I think we're seeing at that level, we are seeing new hires. I can address it generically, and I do get regular statements, and I count them. The last statement I got showed, I think, 14 loss of people and 22 new hires, if my math is right.
Okay.
What I was seeing when we got here about 14 months ago was my severance was this and my new hires were this, and now my severances are this and my new hires are this. And so I gauge it from just that broadly, but I also, when I got here, shortly after I got here, and I was a little bit in a fit, but I called our area directors in child welfare and regional administrators and demanded that I get a copy of every letter that was written and every severance report. And I was a little heavy-handed about it, but I wanted to know from what the employees, severed employees or separated employees were saying. And I have watched that, and I visit with our regional administrators and area directors, probably a little too much in some cases, about what's going on here. And we have a new cadre of leaders in child welfare. We have a new regional and area director in Monroe. We have a new area director in Alexandria. We have a new area director in Shreveport. We have a new area director in East Baton Rouge or Baton Rouge area. We have some great, I don't want to leave out the area directors that we still have, because they're amazing. Leanne Taylor and regional administrator Leslie Lyons and Miss Bro. I mean, we've kept the best of the best, and we've brought up the best of the rest.
Sure.
And that is what drives it. It's that top leadership in the field is what drives those severances. And I talked to those employees virtually. In fact, I spoke to 1,000 of our employees yesterday on a mass call. First thing I did, here's my cell number, here's my email, and guess what? I had a whole bunch of texts and emails. I literally haven't gotten through them yet because that was yesterday afternoon, but I've gotten through a lot of them. I've talked to some of those folks who are still with us. I also, when I can, try to talk to the folks that have left, but it's a little awkward, and I don't want to be a trigger for them, but I do try to look into it, and our leaders are as sensitive. Ms. Rao has our deputy secretary has issued a directive to our folks that leadership from Iberville building get out to the field at least once a month. Now, I've been doing that, but I'm proud of her for that. And we're doing it. And so that helps with policy. I mean, that's talking about finance people, budget people, policy people getting out, and computer people getting out there as well. Sorry for the long answers. I'm not trying to smoke screen.
You're fine. I know, Judge, I've gotten to know you and your heart, and I know you're very passionate about this. Let me just wrap up and say this for the record.
Okay, I need to correct something on the record. 38 for that first child welfare position, and 33 for that social work analyst.
I thought those numbers were a little inflated.
You were right. I was wrong.
And that's more in line. And so I want us to think about that.
I was dealing with averages. I apologize.
33,000, right?
Yes, sir.
For a position that's focusing on children and families. And you could probably go to Costco or Raising Cane's and get a job with full benefits and a lot less stress and make more money. So I just really wanted to put that into perspective on the record. In closing, I'm going to say this.
You're right.
The name of your department is the Department of Children and Families.
Yes, sir.
Children and families. Children and families. And anyone who knows anything about me, children are at the heart of everything I do. At some point, as policymakers, we're going to have to do some soul searching. Because this state will never prosper until our children and families are on a path to prosperity. And the work that your employees do each and every day, they're on the front lines. They don't have the luxury at 4:30 of leaving their work at the office. Whether they're on the family support side or the child welfare side, they take the work home with them. And the reason you see such turnover is not only because the salaries are so horrific, but because they burn out. And I wish it was required to do this job as a legislator. I wish it was required for us to go spend a day or two with a child welfare worker or a family support worker and shadow them for a day or two. and maybe we would have a different perspective about your department and the work that they do. So I apologize for being so passionate, but I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard the pleas and cries of your employees. And on behalf of this legislature, I just want to thank each and every member of your staff for the work that they do on behalf of children and families. We owe them a debt of gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
May I speak for just 10 seconds?
Yes, you may.
Thank you,
10
Representative, for
seconds.
saying what I should have said in the words I should have used. I could not agree with what you just said more. And you are exactly correct. So, and we'll get the detailed numbers for you that we were incorrect on to your chairman and for distribution.
All right. Representative Marcel for a question.
Thank you. I'm right here, right in front of you.
I'm sorry,
Right-
Marcel.
right-
No,
that's all right.
Representative.
That's
Apologize.
okay. That's okay. I'll be very brief. Now, I'm going to say that, and I'm going to be very brief. I want you to know what brief is, so watch what I do. Okay. Now, I would really want to thank you for leading the department and for your passion. We can all feel it and see it in your words and your actions. But I do have a few questions. You talked about going from 749 to 913 foster homes,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's admirable. I love that. And standing up the foster parents program. What portion of your budget is attributed to the foster care? Where is that coming from? And is that, let me ask it a different way. Is the nearly $14 million that we're losing from state general funds, is that going to affect any portion of foster care?
A lot of our foster care support comes from braided federal funding and state general dollars. 4E is, from a means of financing standpoint, Undersecretary Harris can address the particulars of that.
You brought up the next question.
Yes, ma'am.
The majority of it comes from federal funds.
A lot of it does.
A lot of it, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And I heard you answer Representative, he's moved on me, Hughes, about the federal funds. So you don't believe that any of the federal cuts that they're proposing is going to harm the foster care program in Louisiana? Or have you looked at it to see where those dollars might land that they're talking about cutting? Is there potential for that to happen?
I have looked at it. I do not believe there will be direct cuts.
And when you say direct cuts, help me with that. What does that mean?
I don't think they're going to look at foster care and say we're going to cut that 4E money. I'm concerned about indirect impact.
That's where I'm going. That's where
Okay.
I'm about to go there for you. I'm gonna
Yes,
go there
ma'am.
for you very briefly.
Ouch.
So the cuts could trickle down and affect these programs that you're talking about. We're doing a wonderful job with the standing up foster parents and the group homes. Potentially, those cuts could trickle down and affect those programs that we're serving children and families with. Is that accurate?
It is accurate. I'm more concerned about the effect of trickle-down effect on state general, because if they start cutting a bunch of Medicaid or Medicare or some of the other things that other or education or, conceivable,
Right.
then it makes it hard. And we all know there was an election recently on locally here, Louisiana. I'm worried about the effect on the state, which would have an indirect effect on our state general. Maybe I should be, but I'm not concerned about a direct constriction of 4E money or SSBG, Social Security block grant money. In fact, they're block granting some stuff. There's another mention I should make, but it's pretty granular about some immigration things. I'll try to avoid it. But if any of y'all want to ask me directly, personally, I'm
going to avoid the immigration.
Yes, ma'am.
Immigration.
Okay.
I'm going to avoid that for you. But the nearly...
I'm not direct concerned about.
Okay,
them.
let me ask you something else. The $14 million that you're losing in state general funds, what is that going to affect?
I'm going to have to.
13.9 on slide number 7. Looks like we're going from the operating budget from 321 to 307. What would that affect?
So the majority of that is related to the integrated eligibility contract that's currently held with OTS. Right now, that money is through IAT. Once that expires and we award a new contract from RFP, we are going to request the funding back, and it'll either be in professional services or IAT, where we will work jointly with LH.
So we'll get the 14 million back?
We'll ask for it in another funding category, yes.
You're gonna ask for it. Okay. Now, let's go to your 295 vacant positions. Of that, I heard you in your presentation, in your brief presentation, you mentioned needing 125 additional people to stand up programs that you talked about. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you need those when?
I need those today.
Yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, okay.
Yesterday.
So
In fact, I've told folks, now I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We have a hiring freeze. Y'all are aware.
That's what I'm getting ready to ask you about,
So
sir.
I have told our folks, do not violate the executive order. But I've talked to Patrick Goldsmith, who's amazing. I'm sure he has talked to Commissioner Barra. I'm going to be walking down the street with individualized, justified requests for child welfare. I'll do it in appropriate cases for everywhere, but every current vacancy in child welfare we have to fill. And
So you're going to be asking for an exemption
yes, ma'am.
from the hiring freeze?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm waiting on somebody to come to the table that's going to tell me they're not going to be asking for an exemption
It
on the
won't be.
hiring freeze.
Well, there will be areas in family support, maybe in management and finance, but in child welfare, I'm aware of our vacancies. I talked to our
Frontline people that
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have to have on the street, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And throughout, I'm in child welfare. It is. I'm sorry again for
No, go
I
ahead.
talk too much. Every vacancy, if I see one that's not essential, I would have moved it already. And if I see another one, I'm gonna move it to
So
a
all
front.
of those positions are essential.
Yes, ma'am. In my opinion, now you and I could go through and we could have found one of those 253 that aren't, but I don't believe it.
I
Not in
trust-
child welfare.
I trust your judgment.
Well,
And in domestic violence, I commend you all on restoring the $7 million with the governor, but you say we really need $10 million, right?
Mariah Wineski is going to have to address that in more detail. That is a federal unknown for me right now. She may have better granular information on that than I do. She is with the coalition that sort of manages a lot of that work. I know that there's a need for that $7 million. It is not in my ask. It's not on my card, but they need it, and I fully support it. So I don't know where we'll find it. But it is, and I should have had it in our budget. I will, in my opinion, but it needs to go in there now.
Okay. Well, I certainly want to thank you for your work for the children and families of the state. But when we start talking about hiring freezes, we have to realize that these are people that are on the front line, and we already have vacancies. So I just want to, find out what your thoughts were on that and serving the people of Louisiana. So thank you very much for being here. And thank you for your brief comments.
I'm gonna love that. In that vein, I talk a lot. We are also standing up supports for families to take care of their children in their families, whether it's the bio parents or their family, their mom, their dad, their uncle, the aunts. I didn't talk about that much today.
And let me say something. I agree with you in terms of the holistic approach, the entire family. So when you help, and that's why I've been a real big advocate for domestic violence funding, because when you help kids get out of those situations, you help them, the entire family, right? And you raise that child up. And so we either going to pay now or we're going to pay later. I prefer paying now than building additional juvenile facilities or, that those type of things. And we have to look at where these kids are coming from and the circumstances in which they find themselves. And so your department is vital in the summer program, feeding program, and all of those things that we do to uplift children and families. I think is essential. I think that's what God left us here to do. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. And that domestic violence is a perfect example of it being completely downstream and completely upstream.
Representative Ilg for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Secretary Matlock, Under Secretary Harris. Thank you for being here. I know everybody in this room, you can tell by the crowd, it hasn't been filled like this all week, so I think we all want to thank you for what you do.
Or holler at me.
I'll offer
that can gather a crowd,
anybody wants
too.
to co-author the thank you, we'll get that out the way now, because I think everybody up here is going to thank you. You're looking for $10 million for frontline workers, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
$7 million for domestic violence.
Yes, sir.
Shelters. How many people in the domestic? How many people are in shelters now? And I don't need an exact number. A ballpark would do.
Undersecretary Harris, do you know that? I do not know that number.
We don't have the number today, but in fiscal year '24, the program served 4,884 children, 9,459 women, 882 men.
Okay. What's the root cause? I mean, is it substance abuse? Is it alcohol? Is it people that just aren't good at being parents?
I always come back to, in that domestic violence area and many others, childhood trauma of the adults involved, and that often results in serious mental health issues and treatment-resistant substance use issues. And in my experience, and this was learned a little later in my life than I would have liked, but you can always go back to that parent and say, what happened to you? And you can probably ask what happened to their parent, and it's always traceable back to specific events, oftentimes sexual abuse. And I peeled that onion back on many, many, many times. So I look at that as a root cause, and that in turn trickles into a lot of other things. I can tell you it's not genetic. It's not. And there's some, long time back, I probably would have.
Learned behavior, right?
It is a culturally and socially result of specific environmental events, in my dumb old opinion.
I watch people. I'm involved with a lot of the youth in our area, and usually it's family members that are separated, and then it's generational. It's one after another that a single mother has.
Yep.
4 or 5 kids, and they do the same thing at a young age, and it's just they can never get out the hole. Is there anything else other than the $17 million that we need? What's the total ask that you're asking us?
May I approach him, Mr.
You can
Chair?
give it to me.
Okay, I'll give it to you afterwards.
Give me a ballpark.
$10 million state general
Right.
for those TOs, $645,000 for the additional paralegals, $744,000. So that's roughly $1.5 million for the together the rate setting, and the new vehicles are $867 million. So it's roughly
$867 million.
thousand. Unless you got that.
No, we don't.
So it's roughly Undersecretary Harris,
Under 13 million.
about 13
And
million.
then with the
All right.
7, it's 20.
Plus the 7 would be 20 if you're including the
Family violence.
domestic violence.
Okay, and I heard you mention something about an audit and gas in Monroe, and were these people prosecuted?
I believe so. I know that
Do you
there was an
know-
arrest.
Does anybody know so in this room? And how much? And if this was the type of fraud, how much were we on the hook for on that of lost money? When you're
The
trying to
number-
ask for money and we're losing money in certain areas, because I got questions about fraud as well. So, how much
If
money?
if my mind is right, and it's probably not, 56,000 maybe have been involved.
And that's one location. Could it have possibly been going on other places?
I hope it's not. I hope is not the right thing, but our undersecretary we're watching the cards pretty closely. I've got 800 cards out there. I'd like to have 400, but it's a really difficult thing when you got somebody out at midnight getting an infant, and they got to go get some formula or some diapers, and for them to have to front that money on top of everything else that we're putting on them. So I've got to have a number of cards. We have put in some better audit monitoring of that card use under the administration in the last 14 months. Let me just say that.
I'm going to go to fraud detection. It says 725,000 basically. Is what you've gotten in the fund. How is that collected? What is that collected for, and how much is outstanding?
Do you have that understand? I'm asking Sammy Guillory to come up here also, but and he's briefed me on that, and I've forgotten.
Good morning, Sam McGillery, Assistant Secretary of Family Support. We, in our recovery actions on SNAP recipients for fraud or even inadvertent household errors, we can keep a percentage of what we recover. And so that money goes to our fraud detection fund.
What's the total number of fraud? If this is just a percentage, what's the total amount that has been? It's got to be greater than 724.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We've let's see, we collected over $2 million in recovery.
And can you give me an example of fraud? That's what does fraud consist of?
A lot of our fraud in SNAP cases involves usually a father or a husband or a common law husband in the home that's not reported and he's working.
How do you guys find that out?
Through wage records or general public reporting. We have a fraud hotline. Different ways we receive information, then we do an investigation, and we have data matches with various agencies where we could sometimes find that they're filing taxes together or whatever.
I mean, that's an extremely cumbersome process to hope to maybe, that's like, to me, it's finding a needle in a haystack that you find them almost by accident.
Yes, but we do a good job of conducting investigations, and the data matches help a lot.
When you say you do a good job, how many people in your department?
I think we have around 40 staff.
You got 40 investigators statewide?
Some of them do just recovery, and some of them do investigations. I think we have about 18 or 20 investigators.
And you said there's $2 million outstanding. Is that what I got?
$2 million that we've collected.
Since
for
when?
A year.
For this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I saw 724 in the fund. So how much more is outstanding? Like people, I know when you go to recover it, they don't have the money to pay it, and I'm sure they're on a payment plan. What's the total number of outstanding fines?
I'm looking at total value of claims is somewhere around 6.2 million.
Okay.
We do a lot of, if they're not disqualified, we recover from the allotment that they're currently getting.
So you take you
We'll
basically
take like 10% from
you take
from their
10% of
monthly
the funds that they're getting.
That accounts for a lot
Any
of our
type of criminal penalties for this, or just
Yes,
don't do it again?
We do have criminal penalties, and if it's egregious, fraud, we also have administrative disqualifications.
Okay, so that's total
Where they
disqualification.
it's based on SNAP federal policy. We can disqualify them like for a year from receiving SNAP.
So it's a
benefits.
year penalty, and it can get back in the system and do it
Right.
again. Okay. How many employees did you say you had dedicated again? I'm sorry.
I think it's around 40.
You said 40. Okay, now you said 40. I'm just.
I have 25 in fraud and 14 in recovery.
Okay, I'm sure I'll have more questions when I come back. I'm pretty sure everybody else doesn't have any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and relinquish my time to them. Mr. Chairman, I'm done.
All right, thank you. Representative Zarang for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge,
Yes, sir.
appreciate what you do, God. I know it's tough. God bless you.
Best job in the world. I love it.
I'm glad you're there. Question in regard to the OTS transfer, the 38.4 million decrease. So for years, we've been dealing with this cluster, which is a computer program that's supposed to manage y'all's efforts And are we finally to where we're going to get something that y'all can use and have something? It looks like so they've decreased this, but that now they're saying that it won't be completed until 27 or when should it be done? When is it going to be functional?
Are you talking about integrated eligibility for
Yes.
SNAP benefits? So that system is implemented today. It's the maintenance and operations contract that is being reprocured.
Okay, so it is working.
Yes.
All right. So what is the decrease for the integrated eligibility contract?
It's a decrease in the IAT expenditure. Right now, the contract is held in the name of OTS, and then the parties to the contract are ourselves and the Department of Health, and we each pay our share through OTS. But when the new contract is procured, it will be either in the name of LDH, and we will do an IAT transfer to LDH, or it will be in the name of both departments, so that there's no longer having OTS as the middleman for the financial transaction to the vendor.
Okay, which should be more efficient and
Yes.
effective in terms of working this out. What is the annual maintenance on that contract? The program, I know it's going to be, not to hold you to it, it's, I recall it was pretty substantial.
Yes. So the integrated eligibility, the total contract amount with amendments was $113 million.
Okay. So, but there's going to be an annual, that includes the maintenance on that as well? For the
Yes.
contract for how long?
The period of that, that cost is for FY '23 and '24.
Which has passed.
Yes.
What about to the future?
To the future, it's the same rate. Right now, we're in emergency contract, and we don't know what the new RFP contract rates will come in at.
So is it out, is it in the RFP process right now?
We are developing it right now. We expect to have it out by the end of the year.
And then how long the proposal process? So the proposal will be out, then you'll have to take proposals, and how long is that process? We're talking about another year?
Yes. We would anticipate a year from the time we release the RFP until there's an award of a contract, fully executed contract.
Okay, so we are in an emergency contract that's paying the 113 million.
Yes, that was the value, yes.
That was the value, but what are we paying per year? So for the next 2 years, we're under emergency contract. What is it costing us every year?
I will have to get the exact amount for that.
Okay.
Split by DCFS and LDH. I can
And
get
this,
that number.
so the original contract was for 5 years, and
Yes.
we've extended it 2 more years, it sounds like?
Yes,
Okay. And that was the original contractor who started developing this program, right?
yes, the same vendor that developed the system has the maintenance and operations contract today.
Sweet gig if you can get it.
You own the code.
Yeah, I know you own the code, but I mean this whole process to get it done. Hopefully, it's working.
Yes.
Because to get it to where it was working, it sure was a problem. But okay, we'll look forward to seeing the proposal. So the proposal is going to be just for the maintenance, or are you going to have to do some additional work to the program?
It'll be maintenance and operations, so that will be maintaining the system and then any enhancements that the departments would like to make to the systems.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Representative Butler.
Hey, Mr. Matlock, how are you?
Good.
So, first of all, thank you for your service. I know it's a lot of hard work, and I know you're passionate about it, and that's why you do such a good job. So it's been about a year since we've seen each other,
Yes, ma'am.
probably because you've done such a good job. So about a year ago, we had met, and there was this conversation about the shortage you had. Was it about 1,400 homes for foster children? Do you
Yes,
remember
ma'am.
that conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
And now you're saying you're at 0? Is that what you said today?
Well, we don't have any children living in offices or hotels. At least we didn't as of last night.
Okay.
And I hope, and obviously you will always have, when you take a child into custody, there at midnight, you can have one-offs that we always have, we always will. But in terms of children living there, I'm not sure I understand the question.
You're still short of foster care?
Always. And I meant to lead. If any of y'all are interested in being a foster parent, I would love to talk to you about that. Please call me. If y'all have any constituents who are interested, please share my cell number. If you have constituents who call you or call your staff and it's a thing that you think I should be aware of, call me. I hope all of y'all have my cell number. I've got some cards in my pocket, and so it's got it on there. Have your constituents call me. They do. It's helpful. A lot of times they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. But I always listen. And on foster parents, get my number out there. I mentioned I spoke to 1,000. Well, I mentioned it earlier. I'm not going to be repetitive, but if you know of any of our people, and I have some of my own staff who might work in SNAP and they're foster parents, and I'm grateful for that. So we always need. I heard a rumor a couple of months ago that we were pausing our foster parent recruitment. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Right. And I know it's very expensive. I know that for your budget. So a question that I have is that, I'm a parent of a child with special needs. I think
ma'am.
By now everybody's figured that out. And I know that we have a facility, an in-care facility for the state, Pinecrest.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is in Pineville.
And you and I visited about that.
Yes, sir. So were some of the foster care children placed in that facility?
Were or are?
Are.
Dr. Pinecrest?
We have had children placed in Pinecrest.
What about currently?
We do, I think, have a couple children in Pinecrest.
A couple of it, I ought to know that answer. I know on some of our facilities, but we had to pause one other one. So
Okay. So some of my concerns are that we're in a huge direct care collapse, basically nationwide, and we can't get enough due to pay. Another thing that I'm passionate about with Representative Hughes. But how did you facilitate that? Was there any funding that went to that facility or help with care?
So child welfare cannot directly place any children at Pinecrest. They would have to have an OCDD waiver to be able to be eligible to be placed at Pinecrest.
Okay.
And then they would have to go through almost like kind of an admission process where the facility would review the child's medical needs and behavioral health needs and then decide whether or not they can meet the needs of that child.
Okay, so they're not children of special needs? They are.
They are. They have to be.
Okay.
They have to have an OCDD waiver. So the Office of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities.
So that funding follows them there. Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Butler. Let's see, a question from Representative Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair. Good morning. I have enjoyed the conversation so far.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. I know there's a lot of us up here.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's been refreshing to have an agency head to come before us who is so directly involved in apparently every aspect of the department. It sounds like you've been hands-on as much as possible. It might drive some of your staff crazy. They might accuse you of micromanaging, but I think that if you don't know the situation, then how can you best lead? So I appreciate your efforts. I wanted to ask a couple of questions from the presentation. So let's see. Okay, so we already covered the foster homes. I just wanted to clarify for the people listening in, when we're talking about foster homes, we're talking about houses where people live. We're not talking about group homes. You're wanting to place the children who come in an actual house, a family setting. So yes. I just wanted that clarified. So good, thank you. Let's see. On slide number 11, I have several questions here. Under operating services, I see cell phones mentioned. So $998,675 for savings from decreases in cellular expenses. I just wanted to check with you and see, did you do a similar check like many other departments have to find whether maybe you have contracts for cell phones for people who maybe are no longer employed there? Or did you renegotiate your cell phone contract? How did the savings come about?
The savings came about because of Ricky Monte and Rebecca Harris. And I'm going to let Rebecca Harris try to address that, but I'm proud of their work on that, by the way.
It would be both. We reviewed all cell phones that the department is currently paying for to see who they're issued to and what the utilization on the phone is. If they were issued to someone who is not with the department or there was zero utilization, those phones were disconnected. And then Ricky did do a lot of work to negotiate a better deal that saved us money on the plans for the phones that we still need.
Well, good job. I'm hoping that as the departments come before us and point out what they found in reviewing the cell phone contracts, that it becomes a standard feature, maybe an annual review of some kind. That way we don't build up the losses over time like we've seen. So thank you. I appreciate the work on that. Under professional services, $2.5 million contract for someone... a contract to handle the electronic issuance and settlement for Sunbucks. So settlement, was there a court case?
That's just a term, I think, of our payment process.
Okay.
It's the expungement. So after the benefits have to be used within 122 days after issuance. If the benefits are not used, they are then expunged from the account.
Okay, so that means they're taken back. That way they can be held and reissued to someone else as needed.
We return those benefits. Sunbucks is treated differently from SNAP. We actually receive the benefits. It's in our budget. SNAP is not.
Right.
But whatever is not spent is returned to our Food and Nutrition Service, our federal partner.
Okay, so your department receives the benefits from the federal government?
Yes.
Okay, and so this is why there's a need for a separate contract then? I mean, here's my line of thinking. If the recipient receives a Sunbucks allocation through their SNAP benefits card, then it seems that we shouldn't need a whole separate $2.5 million contract to handle that because there's a process already in place. So what you're saying is your department doesn't deal with SNAP, but Sunbucks comes to your department, through your department.
Our department does not have SNAP benefits in our budget. It's almost $2 billion a year of SNAP benefits that we issue. That is not in our budget. Sunbucks benefits are in our budget. It's somewhere around $80 million per year. So we use the same contractor. Our EBT contractor does SNAP and Sunbucks.
Okay, but Sunbucks is under a separate contract?
No. It's the same contract, same vendor. It's a line item within their contract.
Okay, so the only reason we're seeing the $2.5 million increase in your budget is because Sunbucks is for your department to allocate?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the administration of the entire Sunbucks program, yes.
Okay. I want to be sure that it wasn't like duplicative, so thank you. And next column, other charges. Let's see. Okay, I see $3.6 million increase for payments to relative and fictive kin caregivers. I've never heard the term fictive kin. Can you explain what that is?
I can, and that's a great question. Sometimes you will have you could have a surviving step parent of a child they never adopted, or you can have a godmother who's been raising a child. There are criteria. I don't know them. I have known them over the years. I don't know them off the top of my head. But if there is if the child knows that person extremely well, has a bond and relationship with them as though they were a parent. Sometimes it could be, and in the case of a grandmother, aunt, uncle, they're kin. But if it is someone who has been raised in the home or such a close family relationship, and it can be a neighbor. I think Dr. Hook would probably be the one, and Ms. Rao would know the answers to those. But it is generally someone with a close familial type bond with a child that the child regards as an aunt or cousin, even though if you trace it out genetically, maybe there's a by marriage in-law, outlaw kind of a relationship there.
Okay, so that's a good explanation. So it simply means someone who's as close as family.
Correct.
So it's about relationship. It's not
Correct.
necessarily about blood relatives or by marriage.
Correct.
Okay.
But we police it. We're not willy-nilly with it. We sincerely require that there be that real close bond for that.
Right, I understand. I just wanted to be sure that
Yes, ma'am.
That's what we were all talking about. Okay, and I see the $3.4 million in expiring contracts, and I know that you had a little discussion about an interagency transfer with my esteemed colleague from the home area before, but when I'm seeing expiring contracts, my concern is right now that's a reduction. But if it's a contract that's for something that you need ongoing, we're expecting that there's going to be eventually an increase for the replacement contract. So when I see expiring contract, am I correct to not get my hopes up too high that that's really a true reduction to the budget?
It's a true reduction. These expiring contracts were identified through the work from Executive Order 2411 that required that the departments look at all contracts to ensure that they were necessary and at renewal, if they were not necessary, to go ahead and end those contracts.
Okay.
And so there were a number of contracts, mainly within the Division of Management and Finance, that we made the decision that they were not necessary for the department.
Okay.
And so
So they're
were
truly
not
no longer
renewed.
needed.
That's
So
correct.
you're not going to come back next month and say, "Oh, new okay, gotcha." And 300 some odd thousand adoption board payments. I don't understand adoption board payments. Are we paying a board?
Dr. Hook, you may want to come.
So we expect to have approximately 13% increase of people that will be eligible based on a law. I think it was the Family Connects law that went into effect. And so that's why we asked for that amount of money, so that we'd be able to cover the new individuals that would be eligible for that payment.
That's referring
Okay.
to like room and board.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. When I see board, I'm thinking of a group of people who have meetings.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, it's for their actual
Okay, very good.
board
Very
rate
good.
for
I'm glad I
living.
asked. All right. In interagency transfers, I see 8.4 million reduction, TANF to LA4 program. So why this decrease?
There was a means of financing swap by the division.
Okay, so we're not ending any particular service or offering, it's just moving money around.
Correct.
Okay, good. Under acquisitions, replace 45 vehicles. In past years, we had heard some really, I'll use the word horror stories, about the condition of certain vehicles, partly because of age and many, many miles on them. So just a quick question, if you know. To replace 45 vehicles, how old is the average vehicle that's in use right now that's in need of replacement?
The replacement vehicles, the average age, the majority are 2018 models, but the oldest is 2008.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. And then, let me see.
She also has the mileage data on that, I believe.
But
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want
the
to throw that
highest-
in too, yes.
Yeah, the
Because
highest
age by itself
mileage-
is not an indicator.
The highest mileage is 254,000 miles.
And do you have the average?
The average is going to be, I don't have it in front of me, but just looking at the numbers, it's going to be about 118,000 miles.
Okay, so well-used vehicles. These are not
Yes.
being parked at the office all day.
Yeah, there's
Right.
only one that has less than 100,000 miles on it.
Okay.
And that one was involved in an accident, and so.
That happens. Yep. Okay. Thank you. And on page 12 with the turnover history, we had a great discussion about especially two positions that have the higher turnover rates, and we talked about the entry-level salary for those two positions. One was social services analyst 1, I believe, and the other was child welfare specialist 1. And when I did just a quick calculation of the income level that's offered for those two positions to start, it came out to about $15 an hour on a 40-hour week. And so I just wanted to ask, what are the credentials required? I'm assuming that both of these would have some certain college degree requirement?
Not for a child welfare specialist. The requirements were changed, and so it's my understanding that now the requirement would be a 6-year full-time job, like employed full-time in any profession, 3 years of child welfare, or a bachelor's degree in any subject.
Okay. I just wanted to hear that because I know that there are certain local retail stores that start at $15 an hour, and they don't have the entry-level requirements like that. So just for comparison, thank you for speaking that into the record. Secretary Matlock.
Yes, ma'am.
You have reviewed exit comments, exit surveys for employees that are leaving.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, have you found a particular pattern or a most common complaint, and has that been resolved?
Great question. It has evolved. It was pretty regular, consistent pattern a year ago of I have not been guided. My manager, I don't mean the manager, the person over me, my boss, was not available. Their door stayed shut. They weren't in the office, things like that. And that led to some investigations. It led to some cultural change. It led to some personnel changes, and it was pretty prolific around the state. It wasn't limited to just that office or this office. With new leadership, new expectations, and frankly, just a lot of people getting out in the field and talking to people. When I'm out in the field, I go in somebody's office. There's usually somebody with me. I don't go in an office with a closed door typically, but without others there. But and we get real, and you learn about problems like retaliation and other things. But oftentimes there's 2 or sometimes 5 sides to the story. So we try not to be reactive. We try to get all of the information. Sometimes just listening to people, whether it's a foster parent, a worker, a bio parent, or CASA or otherwise, matters. The problems have evolved in a positive way. We still see some of that stuff, but it's different now. And now it's just sometimes it's the work, it's the pay, it's different. And I'm happy to share some of that in a non-identifying way with y'all as they come in. I think some of y'all would be more interested in that than others, but I monitor it. And oftentimes I'll talk to the area director. I'll call them and say, what's the deal here? And they'll lay it out. And if it's something that we can fix, I've occasionally asked someone to come back. And sometimes people have asked us. That's a positive thing when somebody says, I left and now I'd like to come back. Well,
my reason for asking the question here in the public hearing is twofold. One, so that this committee can better understand the reason for so many to leave, and to ask you whether those issues have been remedied or if there's something more we can do.
Work in progress.
And yes, it sounds like it's really doing much better now. And the other was to give you the opportunity to speak so that if the issues have been remedied, there might be people out there who used to be employed who may want to come back. If they love the job, they may want to come back if they know whatever the obstacle was has been removed. So thank you. 2 more questions very quickly. Number 1, would you like to speak into the record the hotline, the fraud hotline phone number that Assistant Secretary Guillory mentioned exist? Because my office we get calls often where people are saying, I can't believe so-and-so is actually eligible for certain benefits because, and I would love to be able to help them to know where to report those concerns.
is a thank you. And thank you, Deputy Secretary Rao and Assistant Secretary Sammy Guillory. We have a website, and I believe 1888 LA Help U, the letter U, and I'm going to give those numbers. 888-524-3578 and select option 6 from the main menu. Easier would be send an email to dcfs.fraud, F-R-A-U-D, at la.gov. dcfs.fraud at la.gov. Thank you. And thank you, Representative Ilg, for bringing that. He's stepped out, but for focusing on that as well.
Well, I think that this would be a great help if there are actual recipients who should not be recipients of certain benefits, or if there are maybe employees who are disgruntled and misusing assets, such as, I don't know, filling up a line of cars with a fuel card or whatever went on. I think that the more we can stop that, the more resources will be available for the people who truly need them, and they'll be able to access them. And so my last question is this. As a legislator, we are often offered to do ride-alongs or field trips or whatever you want to call them, where we get to go out in the field and see firsthand or participate firsthand in what a lot of our people who work within the departments are doing. And so personally, I've been able to participate in the school lunch program and serve lunch at schools to children, go into the classrooms with the teachers. A few weeks ago, I got to teach second graders about government, so that was fun. I've got to sit in courtrooms with judges and watch all the procedures, ride-alongs with DAs. I got to sit through hearings for parole and probation. I got to ride along with sheriff's deputies, especially at night. In my own neighborhood, they had some calls, and that was interesting. So we do ride-alongs a lot, or at least we have the ability, we're offered, we're invited. So if you want to seriously offer that we could do ride-alongs with some of the staff in your department as they go out on calls or as they do routine daily things, I would enjoy that. I don't want to speak for everybody up here, but I bet you'd get some takers. So keep us in mind. I'm happy to come see firsthand. I consider that fun, but I consider that a help so that we can do our jobs better. So thank you for your time here today.
That is a standing offer, and Brett Hanneman, who I'm sure is behind me, is probably back there making notes. And Representative Hughes mentioned that, you've mentioned that, and I think everyone on this committee ought to be given that opportunity, as well as health and welfare related committees as well as any legislator or senator, frankly. So I do it. Me and Joel Hooper up in the woods in north central Louisiana not that long ago doing a home study, and I think it's great. So we want to be careful because our people actually engage in some dangerous situations, but there's always, not always, we would take appropriate steps to make sure.
That's why I thought that even if it's just daily routine stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate the offer, and I will
wonderful idea.
Taking up your guy on scheduling that when we're not in session.
Good.
So thank you.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Representative Baralt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the beautiful things about going last is most all of the questions have already been asked. But I will echo the thank you for all that you do. I would have been disappointed if you didn't invite us to be foster care parents. I know that that's the reason that it's gone up, because every time I'm with you in every room and every situation, you make the same pitch. So thank you for your work on that too.
We get yeses.
I believe it.
We get yeses.
Because somebody is just waiting for that sign that it's the right thing to do, and you provide that. So that's an amazing thing that you do.
Thank you.
I also want to thank you for your support of a big piece of legislation that we're working on, you and Assistant Secretary, or Deputy Secretary Rao and Assistant Secretary Harris. To echo what Rep. Hughes was saying, we're not going to move forward until we find better ways to serve our constituents and the citizens here. And so thank you for your support of that effort. It wouldn't be possible without you. Much more to come for the committee on a big restructuring that we're doing. So thank you for that. My only question is the $4 million going to LSU and Southern, what that's for. It's an interagency transfer. I don't know.
I can answer it, but I think Undersecretary Harris
I think it's
may.
Tana.
I believe that we have reduced that. Sammy, is that to you? That was for,
We had an IDA program that we cut.
we eliminated a program and redirected some efforts,
TANF dollars.
TANF dollars, associated with that. And I don't want to be overly granular, but this was one of those situations where if you looked at the number of people served and the amount of money being spent, you would say, well, we could have, and I don't want to over exaggerate, but it's like bought them a couple of brand new cars, type thing. And so we looked at output and expenditure to help identify that. Now, we still partner with other agencies and other universities and things, but we are very careful about making sure that we're not just doing that because it's actually serving families. So
I appreciate that. You consistently are looking for efficiencies, and
we are.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
in this
ma'am.
committee especially.
Good. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Representative Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Madlock and Ms. Harris, thank you all for being here, and thank you for all the work you do. I want to just go back to what Ms. Amade mentioned, and also Rep. Hughes mentioned. You have 120 new positions that you want to fill. The average salary for that, is it like $15 an hour or $38,000 per year? For that?
I think it was $38,000 a year is kind of what we were, the order of
For
magnitude.
trainee, and then it did go up for specialist 1, 2, and 3. I think 41 was specialist 1.
Okay. And so what I wanted to, just mention, I know working with families, particularly, children that's been, abused and been in tough situations, it really is pulling on an individual. My first job was a case manager when I first started some 30 years ago. But I know pay isn't everything, but pay does help keep quality people from going to places. And really, they are our best resources that we have. So maybe, just as a thought, instead of 120 people that you bring on at that rate, can you maybe bring maybe fewer workers with a higher rate to maintain continuity of care?
It's our people are underpaid.
Mm-hmm.
We have compression issues, and I don't know how familiar. I certainly wasn't a year and a half ago about any of this stuff. But if you bring people on at a higher rate, we have situations where I know of one situation where somebody who is the boss of an employee, who is the boss of an employee's boss, is making less than the employee 2 levels below them. And so there is a ripple effect that has to be. I believe we need to address compression aggressively. But it has to be done incrementally over time, or it is a budget buster. So my effort is to bring people on a little higher where we can, and then address the next level or two to try to. We can't fix it right, but we can make it less bad. So yes, pay them a little more, but I can't pay them more than the person I hired last month. I got to raise everybody to be fair. So, but I also, workload right now, these numbers sound real low, and I agree they're low, but the opportunities for advancement are pretty quick. But I got people who are hitting up against a wall of advancement. They can't really advance any further at that same current level. And so they're kind of frozen in terms of their opportunity. These initial employees can go bump, bump, bump pretty quick. And that's part of my confusion earlier a little bit about answering the average pay for frontline people. They can move up reasonably quicker. We go from trainee to level 1 pretty quickly. Some folks are brought in at a level 2 or even a level 3 in some instances, but that has a morale issue to the folks around them. We're like, I came in 4 years ago. I didn't get to come in at a level 3. Now I'm at level 3, and I can't go anywhere, and they just got here. And so we have to be mindful of those things. We need to pay everyone more. And that is less true at the very top, than it is in those mid-low levels.
Yes, I understand.
And we're trying to fix everybody a little bit within the budget constraints. But please pay our people more.
I agree. So that's why
Yes,
I mentioned
sir.
it. And again, just thank you for the work you all do, because it's very taxing, but also very needed and very valuable. And we
It's
should pay it
taxing on our
accordingly.
people.
Yeah.
My job's the easiest job in this, within 4 miles of here. But the people who work, it's very hard.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you. That's all I had.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Secretary.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for being up there for so long.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of questions obviously have been asked, and I you know how much I appreciate your dedication to this. You and I have had several conversations previous
Yes, ma'am.
about how much you care about these children and their families, and I greatly appreciate how much of your heart is in this work.
All of our peoples are, or
I
they
know.
would be doing something else.
I know. I realize that. And I will say, I echo Representative Fisher that we need to pay them more, the people on the front line, because I can't even imagine some of the stuff that they have to process
Yes,
and
ma'am.
see. I know that our budget for DCFS is 66.1% dependent on federal dollars, and of
Yes,
course
ma'am.
we're all nervous about what that means for a state like Louisiana. So I had a couple of questions about that, but I actually wanted to round back a little bit to where Representative Ilg started with the, I think, I want to make sure I wrote this down correctly. Did one of you all say it was $6.2 million of fraud in the SNAP area? Is that what I heard?
Yes, we have $6.2 million in claims from fraud, but this is out of close to $2 billion
Well,
per year.
that was exactly the point I was going to want to make sure that all my colleagues realize. I mean, I'm not for fraud. I'm very against it, and I think everybody on this committee should be, whether they are or not, because we want the dollars spent where they need to be spent. But I actually was doing that math, so I'm glad you made my point for me that while I am against fraud, and I believe everybody on this committee is with me in that thinking, a lot of it's being directed to where it needs to be directed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make that point because when I sit up here, I mean, I represent one of the wealthiest districts in the state, but I will tell you my constituents really care. And one of the reasons they send me up here is to care for the others across the state. And so when I realized that the majority, so that's like, I think I did the math and it was, 0.024% is fraud, the way I did the math. So the majority of this money is going where it needs to be going, correct? Yeah.
It's, there's more fraud out there than we're catching.
Okay. And I believe that's probably true too.
We all know it is true.
Yeah.
And it's a question of how much resources can we devote and will we devote working with our federal partners in doing that. I suspect with the new administration there will be more mindfulness and more economic support around fraud recovery. We welcome that effort, but at the same time, the main thing is keeping the main thing, and the main thing is identifying those people who do need those services and getting those services to them and spending an appropriate amount of of that, so that we will have more resources to get to the people, just like what you said, more resources to get to the people who need it.
Correct.
And there is an economic balance. But when you aggressively deal with it, then there's this ripple effect of people is like, oh, they're going to catch me.
I understand.
And so we try to work with that and appeal to the decency of people, but we also understand the humanity. We're not perfect, so
And
it's
the
a
other
balance.
the other part I have, Secretary Matlock, on that is I know it's 50% administrative costs in the SNAP, but what is that number actually? Because it's not 50% of all that money; it's 50% of which piece?
Is that in summer EBT, Sunbucks, or is that?
No,
in,
I'm talking about SNAP. Sorry, I
SNAP
didn't-
administrative costs,
Yeah.
I think it's 75?
75%.
No, 75 million is our
Is-
50% share.
is what our
Okay.
what is okay. No, I know the EBT is like 3.5 because you and I. Have
Yes,
talked.
yes, ma'am.
And thank you for appealing and making sure the governor had that in the budget already. So
Yes, ma'am.
we're happy to see that's in the budget. I am, and personally, and I know a lot of us are. So okay, so it's 75 is the administrative cost of
To run the entire
to run the program. Okay. And then I've been looking at slide 26, which again, this is where I really want to focus on the TANF funds and the federal funds. So I don't know if you'll have, it might be helpful to look at that. Because there's some shift in
if you want me to move.
the proposed pieces that I'm just curious, and hopefully you all can help me understand. Because sometimes I don't know what the acronyms mean. I've tried to Google some of them. But under child welfare, in the very bottom of that table, the CPIFS, which I think I know what it stands for, but I'll let y'all confirm, is the amount is going from 19.8 to 8.5 million, and I'm just trying to figure out what that shift is about.
Well, that's scary. That's
know.
frontline investigations and family services.
Yeah, and so I really would like to know why that has gone down so much.
This was proposed to be reduced in the budget because there was the proposed rule from the federal partners that would say that these expenditures would no longer be approved to be paid for with TANF dollars. And so since the time that we submitted our budget and allocated our TANF dollars, that rule was withdrawn.
Okay.
And so they will be eligible for a period longer. But we do anticipate a replacement rule sometime in the
Okay,
future.
so that was because of a federal situation, and now we think that we'll be back up at that 19, or
Yes.
okay, yeah, that just seemed. So that's the investigatory group. That's what I thought it stood for. I
Right.
just didn't know the exact acronym, and it just jumped off the page at me. Let's just say.
Yes.
Okay, so that's good information. Okay, and then the other one that the My Community Cares is being increased. So could you tell me a little bit about the MCC program?
I can, and I would love to, and Dr. Hook could as well. It's My Community Cares, and that is the effort to build up community capacity at a grassroots level within neighborhoods. Somebody referred to it as working with the Medeas of the world. These powerful leaders in local communities who people go to for help. We want to cut us out of the loop. We want to have local people know how to access mental health services, housing, transportation, childcare, literacy, and literacy is a big piece of this because as the My Community Cares, it is child welfare prevention by addressing the needs that people have in the community before DCFS becomes involved.
Okay.
And there is a bunch of work being done in this area. We've got some partnerships with Arkansas. I'm going to be with my counterpart in Arkansas Friday. I'm going to be with all of our people's counterparts in Arkansas Thursday, as is Dr. Hook and Ms. Rao and others, working with them around these early intervention and prevention efforts. We have a lot of pretty bold plans plans that I can't really. It's too early. Not ready for prime time. I don't mind sharing it. I'm not being lack of transparent. It's just we're formulating it to provide more robust prevention, working with faith community as well, and with some national groups. There's a foundation called For Others out of Nashville. They are helping us provide some resources, doing things that have to do with AI and data lakes in terms of identifying potential foster parents and identifying working with a group that is whose body of work includes locating and working with local community organizations to stand up community capacity to help people avoid child welfare. It's a lot. It's a 4-hour presentation, to be honest with you, but
Sure. No, but I just
it's prevention.
I Googled it before I asked the question and found it, and I wanted to bring attention to it because I see you're putting more money, asking for more money in
Yes.
that area, and again, anything you can do prevention before DCFS has to intervene, and I imagine there may be some volunteering opportunities associated with that. So maybe Brett Hanneman and you, Secretary, could share that information with my office because. I do tend to have a lot of volunteers in my district too.
You do. You do in your
and they
district.
volunteer all across the state and across the city of New Orleans as well. So, thank you for explaining it a little bit further, and thank you
I
for.
didn't do a very good job.
No, but I you did. You absolutely did,
Okay.
and I feel strongly that
It's
putting more
important,
money
and
into that makes a lot of sense.
And it will save money.
Yeah. And then the other piece that's underneath that same section, the TANF SSBG grant, those are those grants. It looks like we're having an increase in the budget from 7.5 to 16.3 million. And I'm wondering if you could speak to how that process is working and where those grants are going.
Some of that reflects that CPI-FS reduction probably, or similar. Well, I'm wrong. Go ahead, Undersecretary. And the right answer is?
The TANF grant allows for 10% to be transferred to SSBG. And so the full 10% is the 16.3 million that you see there. We are working to identify more eligible expenditures to be able to maximize those dollars.
And can you tell me who those grants are going to now and who, how they're being reviewed?
It's expenditures incurred in the department. So that's anywhere in the child welfare program for children that are eligible.
Okay, so those are more administrative than, that's what I'm trying to understand.
It could be administrative or direct services.
Okay. Can you give me an example of a direct service? Just for my own knowledge.
Some of that MCC work that's probably covered under already, but that type of work, I'm not sure.
So it's case management, child care would be some examples of, child care would be an example. And we can get some more for you.
Okay. I just, obviously this budget is huge, and so I appreciate looking at sort of a little bit of granular where y'all are breaking things down, and certainly hoping that the federal funds stay stable going forward, although I have zero control over that. I do care about it a lot. So I guess I have a little control. I can call my senators and my congressmen, which I will do. Yes. Thank you so much, Secretary, and thank you to your staff, who's fantastic, and thank you especially to those people who are out there dealing with the most challenging of situations with children and families.
They're too busy to be watching right now.
I know they are, but just please pass along how much
we do, and we will.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Okay.
That means a lot. When y'all say things, when the governor says things, when others say things, and we pass that on, and we do, and it means a lot.
I mean, we are studying the numbers here, but there is an actual child and a family on the other side of it, and there's a caseworker, and there's all those pieces that are critical to the future of that young person's life and that family's ongoing.
And when I leave here, I will literally be heading straight to a foster parent collaborative in East Baton Rouge. to deal with this. I think it's at the Goodwood Library, but I may be wrong. Or no, it's at a church. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, a few more questions. Representative Zarian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize by contract cluster confusion. It was not on the TANF eligibility. It was on the CWIS where I was really concerned about. Child Welfare Information System. That thing's been going on since 2018. I know it was well-intentioned, but we've dumped more money into that, and just wondering where we are with that program, and are we close to getting that?
A year and a half. I'm going to jump in. Cody Cathy is leading that effort under the great leadership of our Undersecretary Harris, and the timelines. It's supposed to take 5 years, then 3, and they are anticipating a year and a half. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but we have taken under the leadership of Undersecretary Harris and Cody, focusing on vital, I won't say minimum vital, but the vital needs associated with that. They do the ride-alongs in the field, Representative Amade and others. Those are the geeks. They're not geeks. They're incredibly whole life, balanced individuals with wonderful and interesting lives and people, but they are so knowledgeable of computer stuff. They've taken a completely different perspective. It's going to be delivered much more quickly in a manner that is usable to our folks, and they are planning training and rollout before they even plan the stuff. So we've taken a different approach to it. Secretary Harris can use the buzzwords that have to do with agile and lean and stuff like that, but next level kind of stuff. Sorry for.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that we did take time to do a full analysis of that. We made a lot of changes in the basic formation of it. The team used to exist in the program, and we moved it over to the technology section, and we did recruit individuals with very substantial skill sets from computer engineering, data science, organizational change management, and we brought all those folks on.
Geeks.
Yeah. They're fun. They're fun.
Yeah, good geeks.
But so they have created a very, very, very strong relationship with OTS. They spent a lot of time doing what was not done the previous attempts at a CWIS solution, which is that they documented the entire architecture of how child welfare works. And when you look at how it exists today, it is very fragmented, siloed, many manual processes. And so they have been working together to understand what has to be done. And so to Secretary Matlock's point, that team has visited every child welfare office in the state. One of the initial problems that they found that would impede our ability to succeed this time around is data and paper. What we found is that there's over 90 million pieces of paper across the offices, and all of the data lives there. And so there's an effort. We had put out a request for pricing, and we are about to award a contract to take all of that paper, move it into a new system where all of it would be digitized, and we can start using that data to inform the rest of the information that we build. Also, we have a solicitation that's out with OTS where we are going to work on our Home Ready module now. That is one that is a major pain point for the foster families. To Secretary's point, it takes far too long and it's too cumbersome, administratively burdensome for them to be able to become foster parents with us. And so that's the first module that they will work on getting built, and we anticipate having that one built within 12 months and the entire solution within 3 to 5 years. So it will be iterative this time around instead of a single system, and we have a path for that success that we're excited about.
A path that began in 2018.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And that's the problem I have with this, is because we've invested tens of millions of dollars in a program that we've just realized after 7 years, you know what, we have too much paper. Let's make it digital. I mean, you didn't need geeks to tell you that. I guess I could have told you that, or anybody here could have told you that. The problem is we've been dumping money into this system that's well-intentioned, was supposed to provide benefits, and it's the black hole of computer systems. And so you're saying now it's going to be another 2 more years before, well, we'll have a module in 12, but the complete system won't be till another 2 more years?
Yes, and we have an entire phase plan that we'd be happy to meet with you on. And to your point, there are a lot of lessons learned, that some areas where we found we could have made better decisions in the past. And so our child support enforcement modernization effort, led by Mr. Chris Navarre, we are taking everything and applying it to that one as well, so that we don't continue to make the same mistakes. Our team on CWIS, Cody, he is leading a collaborative with all the other states, with the federal partners' assistance, to learn from them at the same time, so that we don't continue to make the mistakes and not be good stewards of the state's money.
And I get it, Rebecca, not to dump on y'all, because y'all inherited this system. I get that. But still, it's ultimately, when this thing is complete, give me the Reader's Digest version. What are we going to accomplish with this system?
So what we will hope to accomplish is having a system that is truly built for the users, that we are hoping for, what Cody would say, is having a system that's more open source, that allows for more competition and better prices for the state, having a system that is modular, so if there's any pieces that need to change in the future, we can do that with more ease and less cost than we do today, and making sure that we are not building in processes that are manual today. That's one of the things that we found. Senator Mizell, she had talked to us about, she was very interested in recoding America and building concrete boats, and often that's what we do. We take 10 manual steps that we do today, and we intend to build that into the system instead of letting true technology lead the work for us. And if it can be done in 5 steps in the system, doing that instead. So there is a lot of work working directly alongside all of our stakeholders, be it our child welfare frontline, our foster families. There's a huge module that will be related to finances. It's tips where most of our expenditures go through today, working alongside with all of them to make sure that we're building smart technology.
But at the end of the day, isn't it just primarily about the children we serve, that it's we're making sure that those children are getting the most efficient and effective response from the state, and utilizing the resources that we have to give to the children, and documenting that, ensuring that we get that to them?
Yes, and we're doing enhancements even now. One of the things that we learned in November that impacts both the way that we manage our work and the way we deliver services is that we didn't have dashboards. And so in a period of less than a week, we developed and implemented dashboards in the technology that exists today. It didn't cost us any more money, but it kind of changed the way that we're able to work. We can see key metrics such as how long it takes to contact a victim or a perpetrator in a child welfare case, and there's dashboards that measure that as it relates to the priority of the case.
So tell me, are we going to have is the money available to complete the system, or are you going to have to come back and get more money, or where we are with completing this?
So the CWIS, I believe we have $9 million in the budget today. I believe it's $9 million. And so as we procure the modules, we will be asking for both federal dollars and state dollars to complete that work.
Wait, we do have a module that's going to be complete. That's funded, right?
Yes, there's $9 million in the budget for further implementation activities for the remaining parts of the CWIS solution.
Okay.
And that will probably be insufficient, and so we will ask for it in future years.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm sure it will be.
A couple of points to that. One is, for your ride along, I want you to come see our dashboards, and I really do.
I'd love to see it.
And so we need that to happen, because they're pretty powerful and surprising. 2 is, we moved social workers out of management and finance systems, particularly this system, and these were very talented social work professionals who had been pulled into that work. We put them back where their talents indicated, and that helped everybody. We brought in what amount to software engineers, computer engineer type folks to manage this process, but we insisted that they get out into the field. So rather than taking, and I'm exaggerating, but social workers and trying to build their technology skills, we took people with great technology skills and built their partnership and relationship with the social work. No one in the line of command. I don't think there's a single person between Cody's team members and me. I may be wrong, but if there is, it's like one person somewhere who was great that's still in that line of command to manage this process. It was a leadership issue, and I own that. I mean, this department owns that. Me and my capacity and my predecessors, we own that. And I'm not walking away from that, but we have changed that. And you had millions, tens of millions of dollars were dumped into that and wasted. And that happened, and it stinks. And we're not alone, but that doesn't really matter.
I know. It does stink, and it's a shame because that money could have gone to good use. But be that as it may, it sounds like hopefully y'all are on a more positive path, and we'll get that done quickly. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Amade for personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members and guest audience, we have among us some outstanding visitors today that I wanted to take a moment and recognize. We have members of elementary, middle, and high school beta clubs from all across the state. They have state officers and national representatives here with us in the room today. 18 of them. I'm not sure if all 18 are in the room, but would you please stand and be recognized? They were elected by their peers at a recent state convention. At that state convention, stay standing because I want a picture. At that recent state convention, there were 22,000 students in attendance from all across Louisiana. So definitely, members, some are from your district, wherever you are. And I just wanted to mention that beta clubs focus on academic achievement, character building, leadership, and service. So thank you, students, for being here, and welcome to the Capitol. Come back anytime. And I want to say a special congratulations to the outgoing president. Would you raise your hand? And the incoming president. Would you raise your hand? Yay! Great to have y'all here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome to the Capitol. All right. Next is Representative Adams for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank y'all for being here today, Secretary Madlock. You ever watched the series Madlock?
I did.
You impressed me. You are like her. You going after the answer, and that's what we need. I want Mr. Gilry. That's who I want. Page 9. I'm on the SNAP employee training, 10 million or 13 million. Tell me what that encompasses.
Yeah. We have, our federal partner has a SNAP employment and training program. We contract with different, I think it's close to 36 entities across the state that provide employment and training services to our recipients and future recipients. The money is all federal money. We reimburse whatever a company is spending or a business is spending on these services. We will reimburse 50% of their eligible expenses with federal money. So it's not a state expense, it's a business expense and a federal expense.
Okay. Because I own a grocery store up in the country. I've had my competition 5 years, they were letting people pay for gas. They were letting people pay their electric bill there. I know the receipt comes across, and it's got to hit y'all, $150 when you could walk in that store and say, there's no way in the world they could buy $150 worth of product here. I mean, they don't have it. They just don't have it. During the Katrina or any hurricane, we get a notice we can sell hot food during that time. Do the recipients of the SNAP card also get it, or they just come in and, I mean, we put the signs up and say you can buy it, and then when it's over, of course, we take the signs down. Well, they said, well, I go to so-and-so, and they still doing it. I said, well, I can't do nothing about that. I live close to the Mississippi line. I have Miss Jane come in, Louisiana SNAP card. Tomorrow she comes in with a Mississippi SNAP card. They say it's no way possible. Yeah, it is. It's the same lady. I see her. I know. During COVID, I had one lady came in. She had $4,500 a month on her SNAP card. Unbelievable. I mean, I want to quit work to just figure out how to get it, but that's what she got. I got them now. They come in. The average is $1,500 a month. And they say they don't get, I'm telling you, that's what they get, because they don't even want their receipts. They just leave them now. It's $1,500 a month. Couldn't sell Red Bull at one time because it didn't have a nutritional value on the can. Guess what Red Bull did? They put a nutritional value of 0. Now they can get it with the food stamp card. You know, and they saying it's 0 nutrition. I need your help.
Go ahead, Sammy.
Well, the fraud part, those parts, I'd be happy to take information from you to do investigations, but typically our federal partners handle the retailer side of it. They authorize retailers, they do investigations, we assist, and we can identify people that may be committing fraud or allowing recipients to spend money on things that they're not allowed to spend it on. Regarding nutrition, I'm sure you know there's a bill in this session to limit or to ban soft drinks from being able to be purchased. There's a great attention to this at the national level. We're watching it closely. We plan to issue request a waiver, as many states are doing, to look at some of those non-nutritional items and not allow them to be purchased with SNAP benefits. And I know this is near and dear to the Secretary, so he can talk.
We are, regardless of what the legislature does, and we support the legislative efforts associated with that, but we plan to address this issue. There is now a federal opportunity to do that, because it's not just about the competitive advantage that you're suffering, frankly, and that is actually a concern for me. Yeah. I don't want retailers who follow the rules. I would love to address that fraud, and many of y'all are concerned about it, and we'd be happy to do that across the board. Please call the hotline, call me, call Sammy, call Brett Hanneman, and we will make sure that those things get addressed. But the healthy eating, highly processed foods, soft drinks, we need to not be subsidizing bad health. We need to be encouraging and subsidizing very healthy foods, and we need to do it right, because healthy foods are more expensive, and we need to be mindful of that balance on it. So we are moving in that direction regardless of what we do. I think both here in this building and federally, there are going to be directions doing that. Our children are not healthy, and we're not healthy.
Yeah.
So, but the fraud is a separate issue. So it is front and center. We looked at it last year. There were some federal problems, and those problems seem to be going away. So we are, again, moving into that area. But it's not about telling people what to eat. It's about helping people be healthy.
Yes.
Well,
like the WIC program, when they come in the store, it says exactly what you can get. Can't be an ounce over, can't be an ounce less. You got it. I just think that's good. One more.
WIC is great, by the way, and it has much more benefits than people realize.
Yeah.
So please utilize it.
One more. The lady that comes in my store from Mississippi burns me up because she owns a snowball stand. and she comes into my store. I reap the benefits. I sell her block ice. I sell sugar, everything for her. And she says, I turned this $200 into $2,000. Look, it just floors me because we're buying it. We, the public, are buying this.
We'll happily address that.
Yes, if you give me the information, we'll look at it.
I'll get it to you.
Okay,
All right. Thank y'all.
thank you.
And we'll work with our Mississippi partners. We're learning to do that
Okay.
in
Representative,
Arkansas and Texas.
Representative Thompson for a question.
Judge, right over here.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Doing good, thank
Good.
you.
Yes, sir.
You and your crew have put on a good expression of what we need to do here in Louisiana. And as I've listened to it today, the only thing I haven't heard directly that I would like to know is how do we compare with other states? I ask that question always because we are right by Mississippi. We're close to Texas and Mississippi and Arkansas. We need to know how they are doing their programs and what comparison would you put on that today?
Dr.
That'd be a good way to finish up.
Yes, sir. Dr. Hook just got back from San Antonio. So speaking from, can I focus on child welfare with respect to that as opposed to family support?
Absolutely.
And maybe
family,
Dr. Hook can share. She met with some folks from
family services and children. That's what we're about.
And so some of the things that we're doing really well in comparison to other states is our extended foster care program. It's a program that we have in Louisiana that some other states haven't even adopted. So we're able to really put some resources behind our youth that are aging out of foster care. But what we did find is, like many states, Louisiana does struggle with some areas in child welfare. And so what we're really trying to do is work together with these other states and try to communicate with them to see how they're able to improve both education for their frontline staff and resources for families and children. And we're making sure that any opportunities that they have identified, that we're also looking into pursuing that as well here in Louisiana, because we want to be a leader around the country in what we're able to provide for our families in Louisiana. So we want to take every opportunity to learn from other states as well.
Are those
3 days up in Arkansas?
Yes, we're going to Arkansas
tomorrow.
today. Well, for us,
Yeah.
we're leaving today. So, yeah.
And we'll have better answers
It'd
for
be
you
a
then.
good
Sandy can
opportunity when you meet with them to see what their programs, what's working and what's not. Also, most everybody in here has talked about what can we do, not just give the money out, and we want to do that, but we would like to know where the problem areas are within the state. Is Shreveport doing and Monroe doing well, and New Orleans doing well, and Baton Rouge maybe needs some more changes? What of those major cities in Louisiana and some of the small ones, that hasn't been addressed? I would like to know more about what we can do, but also how many abuse and changes need to be reckoned with in those different locations within this state.
I would say areas where we have high staff turnover rates are traditionally areas where we suffer in other areas as well, such as child abuse investigations, because we have a high turnover rate. Then that leads to sometimes not timely investigations being conducted, and that will trickle down into both family services that are provided and to children entering or exiting foster care. Right now, we know Alexandria is an area in our state that really does need additional resources, and we are pouring all of our additional resources from DCFS into that region, but it's one that we don't often talk about. I think we're usually focused on Baton Rouge. Previously, it had been New Orleans. what we really want to do from our standpoint is make sure that we're looking at every single region in the state when we identify any areas where there is either high turnover or low response to investigations, or there are investigations that maybe we're getting calls about from our legislators, that we're really paying close attention and trying to identify early why that's happening. Sometimes it is turnover, sometimes it is leadership, sometimes it is caseload. Like it can be multiple factors. Sometimes it's just that we have too many cases for the workers that we have. And when we're identifying those issues, we want to, like I said, support them as much as we can. Secretary Matlock is making that request for additional TOs. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do to support our workers. The workers they're overworked in many areas of the state, and they're doing the best that they can with the hours in the day that they have, but there's only so much that one person can do. And so really, I think the biggest ask from child welfare is to really be able to hire additional workers to meet the needs of the state.
And we will allocate those workers to those.
The front line. These are all going to the front line.
And to the hot spots that particularly need them. I do want to call out some really success stories. Monroe was a mess 14 months ago. By new leadership, changes in leadership and things, and then working with community organizations and stakeholders there hand in hand, that's now one of our best communities. And I mean, it was blowing me up on my phone and computer a year ago this time, and it has turned around. Orleans is strong, and it's leadership. Shreveport has stayed the course. It's got ups and downs and all that, but it's been pretty steady. We are pouring resources and mental effort and attention into Rapides because they're struggling and they have new leadership, but it takes a minute. A big ship doesn't turn on a dime, and so it does take a minute.
All right, let me ask this last question about fraud and abuse. What as you look at statewide, what do you feel does that need more attention? Are we letting that get by, losing a lot of money, encouraging people to not do the right things?
I personally think it does. It needs to ratchet up a little bit. I don't think it's an order of magnitude, but I think it's an incremental kick up because I sat on the bench for 28 and a half years and I saw it firsthand, and everybody in the courtroom, and we were hearing it, whether it was SNAP, whether it was disability payments and under the table cash economy kind of stuff. We saw it firsthand. And so
I think if you told these legislators what the changes need to be and what abuse and fraud's going on, we would try to solve those problems. We can solve them better than you can here if we're there with the leadership of those communities.
And I need to trust y'all to do that, to be honest with you, because, and I don't think I do this consciously, but I want to prioritize these 125 people. I want to prioritize that domestic violence. I want to prioritize these paralegals. I want to prioritize these cars. I want to prioritize a few other things. And I need to trust y'all for me to say, I also need a little more money in this fraud and recovery. And trust that y'all will make the right decision, because that's y'all's decision, not mine, really, at the end of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So yes.
Thank you. Last one, Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Mr. Secretary, I'd like to thank you for the work you've done in my community to advocate for foster parents, and the work you did with my coalition to talk about food insecurities in the area and setting up that meeting. That was really important, and I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
And primarily, I want to thank you for the work you've done with the One Stop Commission. The work we did, I think, will pay off. The pilot is now going on, and I think there will be some legislation. I have a quick question, and that is, I don't know if you have any idea, but last year I passed legislation that said for a pilot here at the 19th JDC that jurors could give their per diem to CASA. Do y'all track that at all? Do you know if that's been successful or?
I will work with our local CASA partner and find out, and with Amanda Moody, and track that
I'd
and get
like
that
to,
with you.
if
That's
that-
a great idea.
If it becomes, if it's successful here,
Should be
it's something
statewide.
that I would love to see taken statewide.
We will do that. Brett's taking a note.
Thank you, Ally, for all your work with the commission too. This has just been fantastic. If no one believes how passionate you are, I can't believe it. But your entire staff follows your leadership, and it's just remarkable
I
working
follow
with
theirs.
you. So-
And that's with Allie, Miss Rao. And there's been some just kind of alluding to the fact that there's a major restructuring around workforce. And I don't want to hide that. And I'm so proud of Representative Baralt, Representative Freiberg, and folks like Kim Carver and others who are working in that area, but particularly Miss Rao, my colleague, Secretary Showen, and others. It's a joy. That's not the purpose of this committee. That's another 4 hours, and I'm not going to go there. But I just want to say that this is a good day. This will reflect a good day for lifting families out of poverty in Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. All right. I ain't gonna say we saved the best for last, but definitely saved somebody for last. The statutory dedicating funds, we've heard a lot about fraud, so I want to go back on some of that. So your fraud detection fund, the funds that come from the recovery of assets from individuals found guilty of fraudulent applications, it shows $724,294. What is the amount of money that you actually spend in your budget? Because I can't find it on fraud. Where is that line item?
It's 40 employees times $50,000 apiece, give or take. Oh, so 2 million? That's a better number. You talking about state general or total?
So
how much are we spending to get back that 700 or whatever? that number
That's the
is?
question. How much are we spending to get that 724,000?
It's bigger than that because there's a lot of federal dollars, and it's also bigger than that because federal is helping pay for those employees. So I hate to get too granular.
We'd
Sammy,
have to
or-
pull for the cost center to see what the total expenditures in that cost center are.
Okay.
We don't have that number now, but we could pull that for you.
We pull that. That's an important number.
It is because, and here's my point, if we're not giving the resources to stop the fraud, then I want us to find a way. I need to know what those numbers are because I believe there's a lot of fraud. I get a lot of calls in my office, and it's, I'll give you an example. Why does it take so long for, so if you have an individual who's receiving benefits, whether it's SNAP, whatever the benefits are, those are for those children.
Yes, sir.
But those children then are moved to another home, not foster care, but moved to another family member's home. But the bad one is still getting the money.
Yes,
and
sir.
it takes us 9 months to get the money where it should be, where the children actually are. Why a poor
grandparent,
someone is feeding those children, but someone else is taking those benefits and utilizing them inappropriately. But why does it take so long to correct that? I mean, that shouldn't take more than a click of a button on a computer to stop those benefits from going to X and send them to Y.
there is sometimes a delay in the ask because that parent will come back in and grab that child.
Yeah.
And so sometimes folks are hesitant to ask. It shouldn't take us very long. And if it does, they need to call me, and you need to share my cell number with them. It's usually within 30 days, and really 30 is on the long side for what I would be comfortable with as you. So that's a case where get my number out there, because it's not just about that specific case. It's when we identify that may tell us there's a problem in this office or there's a problem in this body of work that we can chase down.
And Judge Matlock, something else we need to work on. Since I want to continue talking about fraud. We're going to talk about it with LDH, so I want to talk about it with you all as well. So the DAs have the ability to criminally prosecute those individuals. Whether they do or don't, often it does not end up being prosecuted. To me, that's a problem. And that's something that we need to address with our district attorneys. The second part of that is we could give, and we haven't, but we could pass legislation giving the AG the ability to work with you when your staff and discovers that fraudulent activity. We could address it that way as well. So over the course of the next few months, I'm committed to working with you. I know we got some fraud that occurs. I hear about it all the time. People getting benefits that should not be getting them. And then it's the length of time once they've been reported that it takes to stop it. And like I said, it's disturbing to me when there's children that should actually be receiving those benefits that are actually living with a grandparent or someone else. And the grandparents are already senior citizens on fixed incomes. And it just disturbs me that those children are being used for somebody else's own misguided behavior. So I'll get off that soapbox and move on to something else.
Let's take that on. We'll get the numbers and get back with you.
Yeah, please do, because if we're not funding the fraud department appropriately, then yes, we need to do that. So the $10 million that you are requesting now for additional child welfare workers, that's the frontline workers.
Yes, sir.
And I believe you're going to get some of those numbers back to Vice Chairman Hughes, but the entry-level child welfare worker salary begins somewhere between 33 and 38.
That's the trainee. It kicks up to 41 pretty quick, but it's in that 40 range, that 40-ish range.
And are those individuals historically have college degrees, bachelor's degrees?
Historically, they did, but we have not been competitive.
Yeah.
And so we need more money for wages. But I've talked to our frontline people, and I'll say, is it the work? What do you want us to focus on, workload or pay? And our response, our asks are in response to that.
Okay.
And so both are incredibly important. Both are existential, but we have to prioritize one or the other right now. And when we take on the pay levels, we're going to be taking on some real work. And because it's compression, it's the lateral impact when we're hiring people at higher levels. And it's going to take working together with you, with the administration, the commissioner, and with us to take that on. We believe it's important work, but this $10 million is survival right now. It is true survival for us.
And that wasn't included in the executive department?
It was not included in what has come to y'all.
In the executive budget? Yeah.
Yes, sir, in the executive budget. But they are mindful of the need, fully cognizant. No one has put any hampers, halters, or blinders on me to share with y'all that need.
Well, maybe Commissioner Barra or Patrick Goldsmith, they won't mind when I cut their budget and put it somewhere else.
They told me they would love to cut it anywhere else. No, they didn't, of course, but and that's y'all's lane. That's why y'all are here, and that's why your folks put y'all there, and they trust you for that, and so do I.
two final things, and then I will close. But first, I want to thank you. You've done a terrific job, Ms. Harris, Ms. Rao. Last year, y'all came through in a very short amount of time, and I know the session was kind of moving through. People weren't seeing how fast y'all put the Sunbucks program together, and how quickly y'all accomplished something. Everybody said, "Well, even if you give them the money, they won't be able to do it." Bull. Y'all did. That wasn't just hogwash.
Did we have a choice? They did an incredible job. They did an incredible job.
But it was. I mean, and
Tim Jenkins and Miss Rao, the whole team, Sammy, everybody.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I heard a story about how they had worked all the way through the weekend after that, and that was definitely not my intentions or the legislature's intention. Our intention was to do what was right for the children.
And you did, and we did.
And the most encouraging thing is I believe in this agency, we got the man right where he needs to be. So y'all just keep working together as you are, and we'll do our part to best serve you with the resources that you need to do your job. Thank you, Secretary Matlock.
Yes, sir. And I really need to. The unsung heroes in a lot of this work are Chris Baum, Roger RV, Deidre Lamont, those who they work with, who they work midnight shifts. Those are budget and fiscal people, and systems people, and they put together these incredible notebooks. The power of this information sitting right there is unbelievable. And they spend weekends a lot, and nobody calls them out. And I'm calling them out right now. I bring them cookies. I brought them cookies yesterday, and brownies yesterday to child welfare. And I mean, we do these things. But I'm telling you, there ain't enough brownies in the world for the weekends that Deidre Lamont and Chris Baum and their teams, Roger and others, have put together, and always Kim Bertrand, our general counsel. So
I appreciate all them as
Rebecca
well.
Harris's team, and they are loyal to her. And
well, you do realize that when we first began talking about the number of, I was told it was only going to be 450,000 children, but it actually touched 669,000 is the number I believe I heard you state when you began today.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
Yes, sir.
That, when
reminds
and the retailers. Reminds me of the story, and found the young man, and he only had a couple fish and a loaf of bread, but look what it turned into. It fed to 5,000.
Yes, sir.
And that was $3 million, a little over $3 million. And I'm encouraged.
Jesus had 3 million?
Jesus had a lot more than 3 million.
The cattle on 1,000 hills.
Yeah. But what it demonstrates is that when everyone does put forth the best effort and works together, we can accomplish anything. And I think you did that. The other thing, when we had talked about this before, not just you and I, but this was in previous sessions, those individuals, those children that were being housed in hotels and in office buildings, and the fact that your team, I can't name them all because I don't know them named, all of them, but I commend them all.
Yes, sir.
That y'all took that task on and got those children in homes, and now that you have over 900 foster care homes instead of 700 and something. I mean, y'all are doing some magnificent things. Keep up the good work, and our job will be this year is to give you the additional resources you need to continue to keep up that good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all all.